Okay, everyone, welcome. We're going to get started in just a second. I'm just like adjusting my camera, keeps coming in and out. But continue and introduce yourself to everyone in the space. God, cameras are so weird. Okay. All right. So I was just, as I was getting ready to come into the room, I was noticing something, um, which I had to chuckle about. So this is from Sean. Is this Sean? Sean, like a gay, he, him, from traditional territories of Algonquin people. Like a gay, yeah, I like that. Now that's an introduction. So we're just gonna give a few people give a few minutes for folks to just continue to come into the room. Um, we're gonna try to do definitely maybe um, some prayer requests as well. I can't quite get my camera right, but we'll just have to do. And again, welcome everyone. If you're new, welcome. This is our Monday evening practice of the Medicine Buddha tradition, or Medicine Buddha Tantra, as I like to say. It is called the Medicine Buddha Tantra. And it's the guided practice. And so, we're just going to be, well, you'll be guided through something. But and actually, in many ways, I'm guided as well, because I feel as if I just kind of enter into the stream and just kind of am led into the practice, right? Um, and so, yeah, feel free to introduce yourself, particularly if you're new, so we just get a good sense of who's in the space. We're gonna get started pretty soon. Now we're not gonna go a whole 2 hours today because, well, I'm hungry. Basically, that's really why. Um, but well, this is the best I can do with the camera today. So so I told Anji, if you're in practice tonight, I told you that I would talk a little bit about um, transmission. So this idea of transmission in in this tradition that we're coming from, Tantra, right? Um, so Tantra is, well, can be described in so many different ways, right? And of course, you can read Lama Justin's book to learn about, like the depth of the Tantra tradition, what Tantra is. But for me, Tantra is this really skillful, profound, and also really skillful means to touch into and embody the essence um, of phenomena, like of all phenomena, body, mind, the external world. I say risky because there's a lot that you know, we kind of wager, right? We're going into essentially the depths of our what is called the subtle energy body. This this felt experience of the body that's not physical but energetic, and that subtle energy body is composed of channels and chakras, right? And energy, it's just energy, right? Energy moving in certain ways, energy collecting in certain parts, creating this energetic frame that supports the physical body, right? And all our manifestations of our bodies, our mental bodies, our emotional bodies, our physical bodies, our energetic bodies, and so forth, the collective body as well, all these different bodies of who we are speaking to one another. They're in collaboration, right? So the energy body impacts all the other different bodies, all the other different bodies impacts the energy body. Tantra comes in and seeks to align all these bodies, but really focusing on the energetic body, right? And one of the primary ways that Tantra gets into the energetic body is through pranayama, right? Through breath work, you know, learning to harness, focus the breath, because the breath is directly related not just to the physical body but to the energetic body, right? We say that the breath, right, carries the energies of the subtle energy body, which is primarily prana, you know. Um, so prana is life force energy that pervades the subtle energy body. There are different other kinds of qualities of energies, that we find in the subtle energy body, including kundalini or shakti kundalini. Often if it's in the body, we say shakti kundalini. Shakti, is, again, so many people describe it in so many different ways. I think of it as this deep, nurturing, loving energy that's associated with the feminine or the mother, right? That can be awakened within the body, particularly beginning down in the root chakra at the base of the spine. And when Shakti arises in the body, within the subtle energy body, we call it Kundalini, like Kundalini is Shakti often. But these energies are not just, we're not just working with these energies to feel good, to bring things into balance. We're working with these energies because we're trying to essentially remember that we are these energies, that we're trying to actually devolve back into a direct recognition that we are expressions of these energies. Right? And I know many of you, some of you may do, Kundalini yoga, and some of you come out of mother traditions as well. So Tantra is concerned with all of that, right? Tantra is also concerned with the unseen world as well. How do we actually harness or work in collaboration with the unseen world as well? Um, so having said that, so that's Tantra. Like, this is what we're doing, right? In Medicine Buddha and with any deity that we're working with, in these spaces, we are at the same time working with the subtle energy body, right? Because we're manifesting these deities from our minds. Our minds are, hold energy. Our minds are energy, essentially, energy that's conscious, I would say. And so when I think about transmission, right, as I sit and start talking about this, I'm like, oh my God, it's going to take an hour and a half to work with this. I'm going to cut through it because I really want a longer period for practice today. But so transmission, going back to the Matrix. Again, that scene, Neo, we talked about this last week. So if you want a little more information about this, go back to last week, which would be, I guess, session 39 and look at that talk. But just continuing that talk, the scene in the movie and the new movie, Neo gazes down at Bugs, and Bugs has the awakening experience, right? And we talked about that being like a really powerful example of transmission. So I want to broaden that even more and to say that these kinds of transmissions are always happening. It doesn't mean you don't need like a realized master. You don't have to be rather in the presence of a realized master, right? Transmission is the way in which we're invited into the truth of things, right? It's like it's like um walking down, like you're going somewhere, like you're walking down a hall or whatever, and someone says, "Oh, you're walking in the wrong way," and they're like, "Oh, thank you," and you turn around and you walk in the right way. That's essentially the mechanics, I think, from my experience, right, of transmission, where you get a nudge, and that nudge is like, oh, like I'm being nudged into the truth of things, right? So you're being nudged out of the lane of delusion and ignorance, and you're being kind of nudged into the lane of truth, and that truth is wisdom, right? And it was actually compassion that that actually motivated that nudge. Like the universe, phenomenal reality, a teacher, a person loved you enough and wanted you to be free enough to offer a transmission in whatever way that transmission was offered to get you on the right path, right? You can talk about, the um, the cleansing of the mind stream, the different languages, right, to talk about this. But that gaze from a deity, even if it's a deity or a master, who, and whether that gaze is this energetic shove or energetic purification for the mind that actually kind of tweaks you and puts you on this path of deeper clarity, right? Um, it's darshan, right? It's really darshan. Darshan is sacred gaze, right? The sacred gaze, darshan, right? Um, in Tibetan Buddhism, we have Chenrezi, right? Chenrezi, which is Avalokiteshvara. And Chenrezi in Tibetan means great eye, or the great gazing eye. So Chen is great, Zig means eye. So great eye, the eye that gazes, that loves and gazes unconditionally. That's that, Chenrezig is, I think, a real deep embodiment of transmission, of darshan. Um, when we sit and imagine that the deity is gazing at us, that's darshan. The ways in which we offer ourselves permission to open is the foundation of darshan, our transmission, right? Darshan, and which I just think it's the same word. Actually, it's the same meaning. Darshan and transmission is the same thing right now for me. And the permission to open, right? To open, to trust, right? Um, just earlier, I was thinking about the times I've had this really intense, strong kind of transmission, darshan. And one story that came to mind was, just a while ago. Um, I was sitting with a lama, another lama, not Tibetan, was a Western white lama, and just having a conversation. And I remember leaving that conversation being really shook for some reason. I couldn't really understand why, because like it wasn't really anything serious that happened. It was just a conversation. Um, I remember leaving that meeting and walking around and just feeling like I was in like a trance, or I was kind of stunned, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I started just like really going over the conversation, going over the experiences I was having during the conversation. I began to remember this experience of looking into this llama's eyes and how clear and bright they were, and remembering, I don't know how I remember this, but remembering that somehow that llama was actually reflecting back to me my own goodness, right? So I think we sit with a lot of people, we're around a lot of people who are just reflecting back their own anger, their own deep insecurities, their own shame, and that's projected onto us. But how often do we sit with someone who is just simply reflecting back to us our goodness, right? Our sweetness, you know? Even with a lover, maybe you can get there, but like, I mean, like a really clear, direct reflection where it was like the llama wasn't there. I was just looking at a mirror of myself, and that mirror was just reflecting the good stuff back to me. And it was that experience that was so um, jolting. It was just like disrupting for me. And that's the power of that kind of transition, that kind of darshan, right? Where something is reflected back to you. We've talked about in the past how the teacher within tantric tradition is supposed to be a mirror, and the teacher is only reflecting back to you what you need to get free, right? The teacher isn't necessarily supposed to be reflecting back to you their own unmet needs, which is how we get into misconduct, right? To have that mirror that's only just about you, right, and what you need and who you are, not the bullshit that we think we are, but the good stuff, because the good stuff gets lost. Like you just go through the world, and I've been there many times where it's just like you forget that you're basically good, you know, because all you're getting from the world is all the ways in which you're just fucking up all the time. That you're not good enough, that you're not studied enough, that you're not practiced enough, that you don't know enough, you're not doing enough, right? You don't have enough money, you're not thin enough, whatever it may be. Like that's the messages that we're getting over and over and over again. But in darshan, in transmission, what we get back is this reflection of who we are that's essentially cutting through the bullshit that we get wrapped up in. To have that kind of reflection and to take refuge in that kind of reflection is itself an act of liberation, right? Like, who would you be, or how would you be, if you could, really see who you were, you know, like sometimes, like for instance, as an example, another example, like for instance, sometimes some of us are really good at certain things, like, but when people tell us, we don't believe it, like, and we don't believe it for ourselves, like when people come to us and they say, oh, you're really good at blah blah blah, or you're like, you're really beautiful, or you know whatever it may be, you know or you have a beautiful voice, right, or you make really good cakes, whatever it may be, right? And people tell you that, and you're like, no, I don't believe that. Like, everything that I do is shit, is blah blah blah. And then everyone just thinks you're just being humble. But really, like, you really don't believe that, you know? But what if you had this experience where someone reflected your beauty, your talent back to you, and it cut through that insecurity, and you were able to actually experience, whatever talent, whatever beauty, you know, if you could really experience that and take refuge in it, not in like a really like egotistical way or an arrogant way, not like that, but like in a way that where you could say, oh, like I am beautiful, I am talented, or I am sexy, you know, I am a good person, like if you could have that experience where you see it and you couldn't deny it, like how different would you be? Because this is like the essence of darshan, transmission. It's like it cuts through the chaos, it cuts through the static, and you're brought face to face with the reality of something. And often that reality is your awakened nature, right? Or who would we be if, for some of us, if earlier in our lives we could have gotten that reflection, that feedback from the world telling us how beautiful we were, how precious we were, how great or amazing we were, because many of us didn't get that growing up, you know, to be told how wonderful you are, right? And quite frankly, many of us still need that, you know. And I hope that for those of you who are parents or around young people, or in whatever way that is, I hope that you're doing that with young people around. I hope that like you're able to reflect back to them and their like inherent beauty, right? Their goodness. You know. Even though, sometimes some of these kids can be real monsters. I'm just gonna say it. you know. But even in that moment, you're able to say, but you're still wonderful. Like you're still precious. It doesn't matter. You're having a moment, right? You're having an experience, but you're still wonderful. You're still amazing. Um, what would that be like? You know, that's darshan. Like you don't have to be realized or awakened to offer someone a transmission or darshan. Like you can just choose to reflect goodness back to people instead of the resentment, the anger, the hurt, the trauma, the jealousy, which is so easy. You know, it's easy to get caught up in that kind of reflection back, right? Because it doesn't take a lot of effort, quite honestly, to reflect back bullshit to people. It takes a little more effort to reflect love back, to offer love, because it's a consciousness. You have to consciously choose not to get consumed by the pain, right? And you're choosing to reflect love back to people, right? Well, it doesn't even have to be about kids. It could be just about people in your life, right? People in your life, just where you're just able to say, you know what, even with people who are difficult, you can be like, yeah, we struggle, but like, there's still a beauty here. Well, you're still beautiful, right? There's still something really wonderful about you, I don't know. Um, Now, I've been recipient of really strong, intense darshans, right? Um, I remember some of you have had this experience too. I went to see Amma one year, and up in outside of Boston when I lived up in Boston. And if you ever, at least here, at least the venue, we were in this huge like conference warehouse center. Um, and and at least my experience, it was just like it was literally like when you go and see Alma, it's like a whole scene. It's like everything happening. You know, it was like what was it? It was like a like they were selling stuff. There's all the stuff being sold, and then they have a commitment to feed everyone that comes to see her. So there was like all this food being served. It was like hundreds of people. Like I would say almost 1,000 people in this huge open warehouse conference area kind of deal, right? You know, and you have to like get a number because you go and you get the hug. So Amma's the hugging guru. Like you go and hug her, and you get that's the transmission, part of the transmission that you get for her. So you go in, you get a number, and you just camp out. Like this is all night. Like you get there in the afternoon, and you don't like you're there a good 12 hours. At least we were. You know, so you sleep. The families, you know, families come, they sleep, they bring people are camping out in this huge area, and you're just waiting for your number to be called to go up to hug her. And Alma's there for the whole 12 hours plus 12 hours plus, just hugging people. Now that can't happen right now, obviously, you know. And so long story short, like I finally get up there. This is like the morning after the afternoon that I got there. So I finally get up there and I get this hug, and it's like, I don't know, it was that transmission was like hugging emptiness. I would say that was the only thing. It was just like leaning into emptiness, right? And so you get your hug, and I had her bless a stone, which is not here, a piece of tourmaline, which is one of my favorite stones. And then at the end, once everyone's gotten their hug, she does like the final transmission. And it's like a production. Like if you've seen like it's just like it's like a theater production. Like the whole thing is like theater. You know, theater in a good way, I think. But the last thing that happens, you know, as they're leaving and preparing to leave is that, you know, they will come, like her entourage will come and they'll put up like a wall, you know, like sheets or whatever, and she changes. Like, so she's wearing like a regular sari, then she changes into this beautiful sari. And then at that point, when she's revealed, she's taking on the essence of the deity. She becomes the deity. She becomes the mother, right? Essence of the mother. And there's like this period where she's just standing, like radiating um, the essence of the mother, right? And it's like, of course, it's kirtan, so it's kirtan going on, live kirtan, like the whole time. And it's like all this, and you're throwing flowers, and people are crying, and people having experiences, you know, and then you just, well, for me, I just had this experience where it's like, oh, like this person, this being is embodying the the divine, right? In these like 10 seconds, 15 seconds of this darshan. And then it was over. That was it, you know. But there's that, but you, if you're open to that, then you leave changed. There's a changing that happens. And this is why you're changed because what Amma, excuse me, what Amma was doing was just reflecting back to us who we were. And so we think, oh, that's her. Like she becomes the mother. No, we're the mother, right? And we struggle to understand that, to experience that for ourselves. Like in medicine Buddha, like we struggle to understand that we actually are the healer, right? We are both healer and the healed, or one's in process of healing, you know. Um, and we resist it because we don't trust it because no one else has ever done that labor to show us who we are. When in fact, and and this is right in line of tantric philosophy, all of the phenomenal world is actually trying to show you who you are. You know, it's like everything. This is also for those of you who are really in the tradition Mahamudra. Like this is Mahamudra. The phenomenal world is actually just trying to tell us that there's nothing actually happening. Right. Right. And that goes for us too. Like the phenomenal world, everything that arises, is pointing back to its essential nature. You know, the phenomenal world is nudging us to return our attention and gaze to be within our most essential nature, our basic goodness, our awakened nature, right? And that's transmission, right? And it's like it's nothing. I know sometimes we think that transmission means that something's being dumped in us, like we're getting something. You're not. This is my perspective again, but I don't think it's about us getting anything. It's about us awakening to what's already there. An awakened Buddha knows and sees everything. So along those lines, if we are indeed already awakened, if we already possess Buddha nature, then touching into that essence, the essence of who we are, that the nature of mind, the emptiness, the space, the energy, that basic primordial experience that is unborn, that lies outside of reality, that lies outside of a timeline, that unborn, existing, awakened, pure nature of who we are. If we touch into that, we touch into the wisdom, compassion, knowledge um, of the whole great awakened essence of everything, right? So I don't think, and for those of us who have been in Tibetan Buddhism for a while, like I've lost count of how many empowerments, transmissions that I've gotten, formal rituals, right? I just lose count, because all Westerners do is collect these empowerments. We don't do shit with them. Um, that's another talk for another time. But you know, all these empowerments, transmissions that I've set through, you know, I wasn't being given anything. At most, I would say I was being given permission to be in relationship to my own Buddha nature, but I wasn't being given. Nothing was being poured into me that wasn't already there. You know, and that's a basic, essential trust that many of you are missing. This is what we're working on in these practices. Like you're gently becoming, the deity, medicine Buddha. Right? So in this way, medicine Buddha is a gateway deity. And medicine Buddha can get us into the whole pantheon um, of wisdom deities. Not necessarily worldly deities, because it's a whole other thing to deal with, you know. Um, I don't really teach worldly deities as much because those are different relationships that you have to negotiate. Um, but wisdom deities, like medicine Buddha, deities being an expression of who we are. We don't need permission. So a ritual empowerment isn't necessarily permission to do anything. It's encouragement to do something. I know it's heretical. I get it. I've been there, done that, right? It's permission to do something. It's, well, not permission, it's encouragement. It's encouragement. You can do it. Like, this is who you are. That's all these empowerments are. Like, you can do it. This is who you are, right? But if we open our hearts, we open our minds, we will begin to understand and experience that transmission is happening all the time. You know, the phenomenal world, like everything in the phenomenal world, chairs, tables, TVs, cars, trees, the clouds, people, smartphones, hamburgers, you know, let me stop there because I'm about to say some stuff that may not be appropriate. Um, I was like, oh, there's some other things I can get awakened with. But anyway, all these things, regardless of how mundane um, things are, like everything is essentially trying to get us woke. Well, I don't like using that word anyway. Trying to get us awakened, trying to get us free. And what Tantra, and even specifically, I would just use it as an example, Mahamudra, Dzogchen, those systems are trying to do is actually awaken us, you know. Um, but you have to pay attention, right? You also have to trust yourself enough, to take all of that seriously. Um, so I want to start practicing, actually. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put those in the ask a question box there. And so as we move into the practice, like I wonder um, if you can like tune into this experience of transmission. Where's transmission coming from? You know, where's this transmission coming from? Where's whatever word you want to use, transmission, empowerment, darshan. I tend to use darshan more because darshan is much more. Um, I don't know. I don't want to say it's just beautiful, but something that's much more potent about darshan. Something that's much more potent about being seen, which is another part of this. I think one day, whenever I get around to teaching Chinrezi, which I've been threatening for 2 years now, I think, to teach Chinrezi. The thing about Chinrezi is that the power of Chinrezi's darshan is really about how you're seen completely and unconditionally, how you experience that in the practice. And of course, Om Mani Padme Hum is the mantra for Chinrezi, which is like the standard, like the basic mantra in Tibetan Buddhism. But how you're just seen. And so that's another question. This is another aspect of darshan, right? Which is, can we allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to be completely seen? And how can we consent to that? Because there has to be consent here to make this really, really powerful. Like, how can I consent to being seen completely? What keeps me from being seen? Maybe it's the shame, maybe it's the fear, maybe um, it's the fatigue, whatever. It keeps me What keeps me from being seen? What keeps me from opening to the ways in which the world, the phenomenal world, is trying to get me free? So even going back to the Matrix, that scene, right, with bugs and neon, it's like, oh, there's someone who is showing up, awakened on a whole different frequency, right? And that frequency nudges us and it shoves us, right? And we're shoved out of like this basic business as usual frequency, right? And then we want, then we start understanding that there's something else instead of this low frequency that we've been abiding in. There's higher frequencies, right? And that's the power of darshan, of transmission, right? Is you get a glimpse of something else and you want that something else because you need it actually. And I know that when we talk about this stuff seems really esoteric and maybe confusing, ambiguous. And I completely resonate with that because this was my experience coming into this whole tradition. I had no idea what the teachers were talking about, but I knew that these teachers that I studied with, they were on something different. They were doing something completely different, and I wanted some. I needed to get what they got. That's all I knew, for sure. That's all I knew, right? And that's all we need is that curiosity. That proof that we get that says, oh, like this is different than what I've been working with. Like there's something different, there's something more spacious, there's something more awakened, there's something different. And you want to get it. You want to get it. And that has driven, the path of my practice. I want to get it. And really what I want to get is just a relationship with my own nature, the essence of my nature. When I get a relationship to the nature, with the true nature of my mind and body, I am automatically in relationship with the nature of all phenomena. So the deeper you go in, the more the phenomenal world begins to awaken, begins to reveal itself to you. The world, the realness of the world is only sustained by our belief in its realness, right? The more we're able to touch into the essence of things, the more of the power of the phenomenal world begins to wear off. And also, what should also happen is our compassion deepens because we realize that other beings are stuck in something they don't have to be stuck in. That nature, that realization, or that connection to the emptiness of the essence of everything has to theoretically drive you to help people because you realize how overwhelming and intense and how much suffering is involved with believing in the realness of stuff, and your heart will break and shatter. In the same way, Chinrezigs, in mythology around Chinrezig, the way their heart shattered or their whole body shattered when they realized, how many beings were really stuck in some sort of what I call the carceral state or the states. You know, you only need a little peek. You only need a little like pinpoint peek, right? A glimpse of the nature of things for your relationship to the phenomenal world to be completely shifted. And so to begin with, and this is the first part of this practice, just reflection, is for those of you who have, I know some of you have had very strong experiences of transmission or darshan. I know some of you, Mother Mira, I know Rachel, you study with Mother Mira, and I know some of you have been with Muttananda and Guru Maya, and Ramdas, and other teachers, as well. But like, just so at the beginning, like, just thinking about it doesn't even have to be a teacher, like thinking about the ways in which you've been glimpsed, you've experienced the darshan, if you have, right? Just beginning with those of you who feel like as if you have had this experience, and what has that experience felt like to be seen, right? To be given, offered permission to be ourselves. What was that like? In the darshans and transmissions that I think about too, didn't seem sacred in the moment, but they are sacred now to me. Yeah, I've written about those experiences actually. I didn't call them darshan and transmission, but they were definitely darshan. The ways in which you're allowed to be completely yourself. Because so much, you know, we talk about social justice and justice in general, and so much of this path of equity, equality, justice has to first begin with the individual. And that first practice is allowing everything to be there, even the shit that creates violence, right? Because if you don't allow things to just be there, you won't ever understand how to disrupt reactivity, which actually perpetuates the violence that's felt in your own experience and in the experiences of those around you. These systems of violence, patriarchy that, people like me are assimilated into, and ableism and racism and so forth, queerphobia, transphobia, all of that's perpetuated through unconscious reactivity. To begin to bring awareness to the things that we're habitually reacting to has to begin by allowing things to be there, right? And for me, submitting, opening to just being seen has been one of the ways in which I've gotten to this place of allowing things to be so I could start disrupting reactivity. That means I have to also hold space for the shame, for the trauma, for the pain, disillusionment, for the brokenheartedness. That's the power of darshan, to be seen completely, to be allowed to be completely, both the good and the bad, right? Or if, what we say in Tantra, both, or particularly Tibetan Buddhism, both the gods and the demons must be held in the same spaciousness and the same lovingness. And when you do that, that means you're going to have to experience this stuff. You have to experience the shame, the heartbreak, the guilt. But as I often say, you can experience that and still be held, right, by your benefactors. As I am doing this intense labor to get free, I am also connecting, being cared for by beings who love me, who are rooting for me to get free. And maybe some of you haven't had that experience yet, being completely seen. But there are experiences where we've been seen by lovers and maybe family or good friends. And as we begin to move a little deeper into the practice, I want to actually evoke Medicine Buddha through the opening mantra, Minla Sangye Kino Soha, which simply means Medicine Buddha, please know me or think of me. Yeah. So Minla Sangye Kino Soha. And as we chant this, we're going to chant this a couple of times. I want you to imagine that your space, the space around you, begins to fill up with or awaken with this energy of Medicine Buddha, right? This energy of clarity, of honesty, of love. Maybe a way to get to that is to imagine that the room begins to be filled with all the beings in the worlds, all the universe, really, who love you. You don't have to know who these beings are, but just saying, my space, this room, whatever it is you're practicing in, is being filled with all the beings in the world who love me, who are gazing lovingly at me and into me. And this is the same as the awakened mind of Medicine Buddha, of Minla Sage. Okay? So let's practice this as we begin the mantra. Minla Sage Kino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. Om Minla Sangye Kino Soha. So imagine what it feels like or experience, however, wherever you're at, just trying to experience what it feels like to be held and gazed upon lovingly by beings or by an awakened consciousness that doesn't want anything from you except for you to be happy. And sometimes I like to imagine that the space is actually chanting May you be well and happy and free and safe to me. As if like everything in the space around me is cheerleading, cheering for me to get what I need, what I most need. I'm just sitting with this. And this becomes something that you begin to drink in. Right? It's this energy, this love, this gazing, the cheerleading, the chanting. Like this is just all like energy that feels as if it's being deeply drank in into our bodies, into our hearts and minds. And our hearts may be really closed. So I invite you to imagine that you're like inhaling this energy of love and care around you, this awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha, that you're inhaling that deeply into the heart center. And as you inhale, it's like warm air being inhaled into the heart center, which may be like icy. And so this inhaling into the heart center begins to melt the iciness of the heart. And that iciness is all the ways in which we've had to shut down to survive, or the ways in which we've had to manage as skillfully as possible a heart full of pain. In this moment, as the heart melts, allowing that pain, that experience of lacking safety, maybe, to be held by this awakened energy, this care around you, that's beginning to saturate the body. Again, you may be hearing from the space around you, may you be well, may you be free, may you be safe. It's like metta practice, really. Loving kindness. May you be well, may you be healed, may your heart melt, may you consent to being seen completely. And what are the ways in which you're holding on to something that you don't need to be holding on to? Can you release it into this energy of care, into the consciousness of Medicine Buddha? And so we just begin to imagine that our bodies and our minds are filling up with this energy, that our hearts are melting. All we're doing is opening. What we're doing is opening and allowing ourselves to be seen and held, letting go. So we'll begin our first part of our mantra practice, and then we'll come back and I'll offer the prayer requests as well. And offer another added practice on top of that. Okay? So we begin with Medicine Buddha's mantra, Tea Tao Bacon Say, Maha Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon Say, Rasa Sumongate Soha. Tea Tao Bacon Say, Ma Bacon hata umbegenze, begenze, ma begenze, lazumangate soa. Te 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 hata umbegenze, begenze, ma begenze, lazumangate soa. So now we turn our practice into offering prayer requests that have been offered here in the space. As we begin, I call upon all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yidams, Dharma protectors, all benevolent guides, spirits, deities, ancestors. I call upon the earth and all the elements to hear these prayers and to work on our behalf and to move on our behalf to support all those that we're offering prayers for. I want to begin by offering prayers for my friends Allah, Mathematics Allah, and John Renish and Devisha Bodhi, friends who have passed into the Bardo recently, that their journeys through the Bardo may be without obstacle, that they're able to find, the connections and the resources that they need in order to continue their path towards liberation. I'm offering prayers for myself in moving through a few different forms of heartbreak and grief. Offering prayers for myself while I'm surrendering to the fullness of my experience. I offer prayers of gratitude for all of our teachers and guides, all beneficial ancestors and spirit helpers, that we continue to receive your guidance and protection so we can walk a path of hearts. Offering prayers for Jobs who has surgery this week. Offering prayers for my mother Pat, who has fallen a couple of times in the last week. Offering prayers for my mother who is working with epilepsy and brain damage and preparing for major brain surgery. For our Bodhisattva Mother Earth, may her generosity be reciprocated and her wounds be healed. Offering prayers for my mom who has been diagnosed with early stages of dementia. Prayers for me as I navigate my way through how to care for her and what this means in my life. Prayers for my own health and path in life. Prayers for me as a teacher, that I may be able to give my best and create space for my students' deep learning. Offering prayers for Rowan and the Bardo, Martha, and the community around them. Prayers for those with chronic and mental illnesses who are suffering. Prayers for the homeless during this cold season. Offering prayers for my discernment, clarity, and self compassion as I navigate the complexities of spiritual training and practice within this complex human experience. Offering prayers for Dave, who passed in December, for all who are incarcerated and navigating the dangers of this pandemic. Offering prayers for the water. Offering prayers for Kaya as she works through heartache and grief. Prayers for Echo Company Jewel Instructors as they go into the first training cycle of the year. Prayers for the Puro people whose kindness was met with violence. May their descendants know greater peace. May the ancestors know freedom from pain. Offering prayers for water, the ocean, the rain, the rivers, lakes, streams, the water we use for eating, for washing, for ceremony, the water of our cells and the waters of our breath. May we act with more reciprocity towards water. Offering prayers for those who fear their breath or don't engage with breath because of fear. Prayers for the unhomed who have to face the cold as winter comes. I'm offering prayers for my feline companion Lennis and his human family members as we cherish his last few days on the earth with us. Prayers for Lama Rod, may you be held and healed as you facilitate the freedom of so many. Prayers for my mother, who has dementia, and my father, caring for her with so much devotion. Prayers for everyone who lost a home to fires. Offering prayers for Sue Sneeden, who entered the Bardo early this morning. Her wife, Donna Giles, and friend Jeanette Stokes in grief over the loss. For Rita Marie Blazer, who had part of her foot amputated. Lou Mosnier, 99 years old, who had a stroke and has lost sight in one eye, jeopardizing his ability to read. For Jeanette Colwell, their friend, worried about them both. For Hava Bailey, with multiple very difficult physical challenges. Joyce Gamera and my cat Sita, who is ill and losing weight. Offering prayers for Vicky and David who were in a car accident, and for the family of Mani who's nearing the end of life with Alzheimer's, all that and all that entails for those who love her. Prayers for Mai, Teresa, and Morgan who are dealing with health issues, the death of a family member from COVID. Also for folks who are houseless and are dealing with mental health and substance use issues. Offering prayers for my son Angel with mold toxicity, for Chris Care at Crossroads and in recovery, for Zep Green struggling with chronic condition, Johnny Gonzalez struggling with the pain of residential schools. Prayers for Thor the kitty as he approaches the end of his life. Prayers for all the stressed out and burnout healthcare workers dealing with another wave of COVID. Offering prayers to my friend Kelly as they go through treatment for mold poisoning. Prayers for my friend who had a miscarriage and her baby who did not join us. Prayers for my father Jack Merrill awaiting surgery for cancer. Offering prayers for my mother who is struggling as a caretaker in a violent situation. May she be free from harm and realize her value. Prayers for myself moving through a few different forms of heartbreak and grief. And I continue to offer prayers for the liberation of all beings from systems of violence and harm, that all beings are able soon to get what they need in order to be well, safe, happy, and continue to pray for all the lives that are being lost to these systems of violence, and all the lives that are being lost to this continued experience of pandemic, of all the lives who have been lost to disease and illnesses that the world has struggled to care for. That we all may be free from harm, and that we all may be safe, that we all may have what we need. May those who are alone be held. May those of us whose hearts are breaking be cared for and held in this moment. May the healing of Medicine Buddha penetrate and saturate all of this phenomenal world, releasing and freeing all of us so that we may return to our most essential awakened nature. May all suffering end as soon as possible. So as we move back into the last part of our mantra, just continuing to be held by this energy, this awakened consciousness, maybe even imagining that this energy is also holding all of those whom we've offered prayers for. We begin again. Oteya taum begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumunga tesua. Teya taum begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumunga tesua. Teya taum begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumunga tesua. Teya taum begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumunga tesua. Teya taum begenze, begenze, ma begenze, raza sumunga tesua. Teya taum Soa, Teata Umbeganze, Beganze, Ma Beganze, Razasumunga 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 Soa, Teata Umbeganze, Beganze, Beganze, Razasumunga Soa, Teata Umbeganze, Beganze, Ma 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 Beganze, Razasumunga Soa, Teaza umbegenze, begenze, ma begenze, lazo ganezoa. 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 Just for these final few moments of practice, just sitting in this open darshan, this open transmission. Allow yourself just for a few more moments to be deeply held and regarded and loved. As we transition, I make a prayer, offer this prayer that this love, this awakened energy around you and inside of you remains with you for as long as possible until we meet again. So coming back into the space, coming back to the seat, coming back to the floor, the earth under you. Doing some simple movements to awaken the body, doing some stretching, maybe some deep breathing. Hmm. Hmm. And so we're gonna chant Shanti Deva's prayer 3 times. So before everyone starts posting, we're gonna do this, and then we'll be able to sign out. And the questions, I don't know the questions. Um, I'll get to questions next week. I'll come back to that one. Okay, so we're going to recite this just 3 times together. Okay. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. I realize this is the gayest thing ever to do, but like this is like so much fun to play this. And I haven't played this in a good long time. So so there we go. Thank you all so much. Um, so next week, I'm almost decided on the lecture series for the medicine Buddha literature. Okay, so I'm gonna announce I have to talk to a couple of people about scheduling, but I want to finally do that and start doing that. Maybe twice a month. Just having a special just lecture about um, the the traditional texts associated with the practice as well. Okay. Um, let's see. All right. All right. So thank you all. Please take care of yourself and stay connected. Stay connected. Okay. And be well. I'll talk to you all later. Bye.